Hey everyone, it's Corey of Blue Falcon Board Gaming. If you're new to the channel, I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran that started the Blue Falcon Board Gaming Group in the Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia tri-state area with the hopes of promoting positive mental health through board gaming, as well as making board games more accessible to the community by hosting and co-hosting free events. Today, I've got Andrew Beardsley with me. Andrew, welcome.
Hi, hi
Would
there. Hi, Corey.
you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Andrew Beardsley. I am a board game designer. I'm designer of Zombie Princess and the Enchanted Maze. I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now. I was an architect and I recently gave that up to concentrate on board game design more. I'm not going to say full time because I still have to work part time, but um, yeah, and I'm happy to talk to you about my experiences with board game design and how that links to mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. So I found out about you through the Board Game Geek website, and you had posted on one of the forums, and it was
Hmm.
specifically about board games and mental health in the
Yeah.
title. So I was like, oh, I'll see what this is.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you want to kind of go into that little that post that you had made?
Yeah, I reached out on Board Game Geek partly because my partner, who was diagnosed with autism about 7 years ago, has been struggling with the late diagnosis of autism. And I was doing research online and I found a YouTube video by a woman who'd been diagnosed in her 40s a couple of years ago. And at the end of the video, she said, if I can reach out to one person and affect some one person, then I've done my job. And she did. She really helped me understand my partner's situation. And I thought, this is something I can do about mental health. Even if one person reads my post, if I get one person listening to my story and thinking, I've been through that, that's really good to know that someone else is experiencing this, then I can feel I've made a difference. So I have been suffering from mental health and depression on and off my entire adult life. And about, well, it was brought on partly by the pandemic and partly with my dissatisfaction with work. But I had a very severe bout of depression over the last 2 years, which I'm coming out of now. And I wanted to share that story and explain to people how important board games, playing board games, and board game design has been in order to help my recovery. And a major part of that is the social side of board games and the fact that it helps me connect with other people. And the other side of it's a passion that I can explore. So it gives me meaning and it gives me something to do. It's that simple, perhaps not
Yeah,
at all. Um, so maybe I'll tell you about how I started getting into board game design.
yeah.
About 5, 6 years ago, I started working on a game design just as a hobby because one Christmas I had some time on my hands. I started making a prototype of a game idea that I had with no intention to get it published. I started making the prototype, started playing with friends, and I realized I had something that had potential. The first prototype I made, the game lasted 5 minutes and it was terrible, but we were laughing and people said, keep going with this. So I continued to develop the game. I hadn't played any games, modern board games at that time. I played a lot when I was a kid. And it was like a step-by-step process really to getting it published. The game was developed and I entered it into a publisher speed dating competition at the UK Games Expo, which is the big board game convention in the UK, which is held every June. Not expecting to get selected. Anyway, I got selected, which was great. I went down there in June, not knowing what I was talking about with the game, completely naive, which I think helped me. And I sat down and we had, I think it was 5 minutes to pitch to 20 different publishers. It was the most stressful experience of my life. Um, and as I said, I was completely unprepared. And one of the publishers who I pitched to said, I want to play it. And the next day I had a playtesting table set up. So he came along. To cut a long story short, we were playing the game, and about halfway through, he started to smile and I got a good feeling. And then he said, I want to publish this. And I nearly fell off my chair. I just was not expecting this at all. So that was 3, 4 years ago. The pandemic happened. Hooray. We all love the pandemic. So that delayed the development of the game and the publication, but it came out last year. Um, and this was happening at the same time as me becoming more and more disillusioned with my career choice, my decision, well, not my decision, the fact that I was working as an architect, I was becoming more and more depressed, more and more dissatisfied, and more frustrated. And I was leaning on the board game design more and more to help me get through this. And one of the reasons I did that post is that I was hoping that other people reading my post would not let their lives get to the point that I did, where I was forced to leave my job because I couldn't do anything else. I was not in a fit state to continue. I suppose people talk about hitting rock bottom, and it was not a very nice experience. And it was a very difficult decision for me to leave, even though it was making me ill. So I eventually got to a point where I couldn't work physically, and that's when the decision was almost made for me by my illness. And I physically couldn't do what I thought I should be doing. And then I was forced to step back and say, okay, I've got to give myself permission to change my life. Which again, when you've spent your entire life deciding that you are a professional working in a field that's respected, that you've spent a lot of time studying for, and that you're dependent on for money as well, because obviously we've all got to pay the bills, it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. But I knew in the back of my head there was a voice saying, you can design board games. People like the games you design, and you've got one published. You've got to go for this. It's something that I had to do, and who knows where it will take me. But that's sort of a potted history of the last sort of 3-4 years.
Yeah, I think there's something that is like innate with us about play, and we have to have some sort of play in our life, whether that's board games or XYZ hobby. Some version of play needs to be in our lives, or it's just all work at that point, and then it tears you down so much.
I think play is an incredibly important concept that I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people think that play is for children. Or play is for some. It's not the things that adults do. And I think that when you look at children, they explore the world by playing. They make connections through play. They test themselves through play. And all they're doing is playing, and then they have no idea they're making these connections and these learning experiences. And I think adults have forgotten that. It's almost like, it's trivial and it's silly, but in fact, I think it's incredibly important because it enables us to refresh our experience of the world around us and try new things and make social connections, and test the way you see the world. And I think games can be a really valuable way of almost making us look at our lives differently. They give us permission to be stupid and to be different people and to take risks that we would never do in real life. And I want to help people make that connection. That makes sense.
Yeah, and especially with like tabletop RPGs, like you get to try new things, like new social things, in a safe space. So if someone's got an issue with a child or something and they're always acting up, and then if they can get them to play the tabletop and then their character goes around acting up and they're just a murder hobo or something, like they get to explore those consequences though, like oh, now you have to roll a new character sheet because you just killed the town's beloved barkeep, and now the entire town went after your character. You have to roll a new character sheet, and eventually they're going to be like, I don't want to roll a new character sheet every time I act up. Maybe I'm going to start playing a little bit by the rules, So
But the other thing I love is that when I play games with friends and other people in my games groups and play testers, we learn something about ourselves. And I think we spend a lot of energy. I spent a lot of time and energy, and I see this in other people, trying to be somebody that isn't necessarily who I am. And part of that is because nobody really knows who they are, and we're always finding out more things about ourselves. So we try on personas and we try on identities to try and make ourselves work in the world. And I've lost my train of thought now. When you're playing a game, if it's with the right group of people, you often can't hide your true nature.
Mm-hmm.
The real things that are important to you often come shining through, and the things that inspire you, the things that excite you, the things that interest you can't be hidden, because the game sort of lulls you into a false sense of security. Whereas in life, I think we spend a lot of effort and a lot of time constructing a persona in order for us to survive a lot of the time, and it can be really damaging and it can be exhausting. One of the things when my depression got bad, a technical term, I started having cognitive behavioral therapy, and it was online because it was during the pandemic. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. It's because we were asked to do an exercise where you talk about values, and I'd never come across this idea of values before. And they gave me a sheet that said, with different categories, so work, family, money, relationships, sex, hobbies, food, and it asked you to put down from 1 to 5 how much of your life is taken up with these things. So I did that, and then it had the same categories, and it said, now I want you to, on a scale of 1 to 5, mark how important these things are to you. And then it said, look at the two sets of numbers, and where you've got a mismatch, that's where there's something wrong with your life. And it's such a simple exercise, and it made me realize what was important to me. And the mismatch was between my work. My work was taking up all my energy, all my emotions, all my life, all my time, and I didn't give it any value at all. And that was sort of the piece of paper telling me that I was doing the wrong thing. And I've never been asked what I value. And it sounds crazy, but it took this mental illness, this depression, to force me to step back and say, what is important to me, and really, really interrogate that. And I think understanding what your values are the first step to understanding how to live a life that reflects those values. Anyway, that's
Yeah, I've done several similar exercises to that while in therapy and stuff. I mean, since 2017, 2016, I've been in therapy consistently, often, one time a week, at least twice a month has been the norm. But we've done all kinds of stuff like that with the values of, lay out what's important, and then it got to the point where we were doing, like a bracket. It's like, okay, is this value and this value is up against each other, which one wins? And so
I mean, I may be saying something that everybody else knows, but to me, it was mind blowing.
Oh, no, because
it's so straightforward.
My wife finally took my advice and started seeing a therapist, because she'd seen a few before, but like she never clicked with them. So it was like, I'm not going back. Well, she found a good one finally. And everything that I've told her in the past, she'll come home, she'll be like, oh, I learned this. I was like, I told you that 2 years ago. She's like, yeah, but a therapist told me.
Yeah, it's the professional, isn't it? So
so do you want to talk about the gameplay of how that works with the game that you designed, Zombie Princess?
Oh yeah, well when I was a kid, I played board games obsessively, and no one would play with me because I was so competitive and such a sore loser. And but I collected board games as a kid. Then I completely dropped out the hobby. And I thought, when I started designing this, I decided that I was going to design the game that I would have wanted to have as a child. And I was obsessed with mazes. We lived near Hampton Court Palace, which the Henry VIII's Palace in London. And there's a very, very old hedge maze there, which we used to go around. I just loved it. So I wanted to design a game that had a rotating maze, that you could build the maze and explore it yourself. So this is my idea. It was all going to be in 3D. So I decided I wanted to design the game that I would have loved to have had as a kid. And when I did that, I realized I hadn't played any games for 25 years. I didn't know what games were out. I had no idea how big the market was. So I thought I'd better start playing some games and finding out what's out there. So my game kind of came out of a vacuum, and it wasn't touched by any other designs because I didn't know any. So in a way, it was quite a naive, almost childlike game, and I'm quite proud of it for its simplicity. It's incredibly simple. But the game you play as a knight who has been thinks they're trying to rescue a princess from a maze. What they don't know is that the princess has been bitten by a zombie infested rat and turned into a zombie. So you've got 4 knights in the maze trying to rescue her, and then they realize they're going to get eaten by her and they've got to escape. So the tagline is, once upon a time she was looking for love and now she's looking for lunch. You build the maze as you go. It's a tile-based game, and you explore it, you rotate it. All the players play as the zombie princess as well, so you can send her off to try and eat the other players. And if you get caught by the princess, then you get turned into a zombie. So it can turn into a very asymmetric. It's competitive, and then one versus many, and then there can be one person left, and everyone else is a zombie trying to catch you. So it's quite a fun little game. So I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, I looked on a Board Game Geek too, and I think you were the one that had uploaded the photos, but there was a 3D version of the hedge maze, and it looked really, really good.
My grand idea, which was that it was going to have a modular system of plastic pieces where you build the maze, maze pieces, and it was all going to be in 3D. Unfortunately, I had the realization that publishing needs to be affordable, and that the intention was to try and do it in 3D, but it was just going to be too expensive. Mm-hmm. So maybe one day there'll be a deluxe edition. Also, if you want I can also give people the 3D printing files. So if they want to print their own 3D pieces to make the modular system to build the maze themselves, then they can get in touch on Board Game Geek, and I can send that out. So
awesome.
Yeah,
we just did a game night at the Lincoln County High School. It was Thursday night, and one of the guys there, I'm messing with the game design, and he was playtesting. He's like, "So you're going to put like an STL file inside your box, right, to where like people can 3D print a better storage solution or something?" I was like, "I've never thought about that. Like just a QR code or something inside the box that people could scan. It takes them to the how to play videos, and then hey, here's a bunch of STL files for upgrades if you want to."
That's a great idea. And more, I'm working on another game with a co-design at the moment, and we're thinking about doing an affordable print and play version to start with, because we want to get the game out there and see. So I really like the idea of giving people the option to take on the construction process themselves, so they can produce the components themselves. Mm-hmm. It's a really nice, sustainable way of doing it.
Well, I think that's another hobby within the hobby, though, too. Yeah. Like, there's people that love to just buy games and collect games, and they may not ever play them. And then there's people that love to play all of the games.
Yeah.
But then you've got people that are like, "Oh, I'm going to make component upgrades, or I'm going to make this look as nice as I can, or get into miniature painting, whatever it may be." Yeah. There's so many hobbies within the realm of board gaming that's out there.
And when I started this, I had no idea this existed. I mean, I thought board games was Cluedo and Monopoly, and forgive me, but it's incredible. So it's such a wide hobby, isn't it?
It is. So I know it always fluctuates and changes. So what would you say is probably your top 3 to 5 board games right now?
One board game that I will always play, given the opportunity, is one called Fog of Love, which is a 2-player game about being in a relationship. And I have, with the right person, with the right other player, I have not laughed so much in my entire life playing that game. You play as a couple trying to work out who you are, who your partner is, and what your relationship is going to be. And it is a fantastic experience. It's quite meaty. So that is really unique. Oath is another game that I can play over and over again. It is such a rich experience. It's such a rich storytelling experience. And I absolutely love the way the game can change on a dime, where the goals change. There's king making, which I think is very underrated. I like games with lots of interaction and lots of social interactivity, and oath always gets us talking and rowing and colluding and conspiring. It's just a fantastic game. Have I got a third one? There's another game called Dark Moon, which was a simplified and reskinned version of Battlestar Galactica. Again, it's social deduction. I love social deduction games. Any games where you can lie, that's my thing. And it's a wonderful kind of condensed version of Battlestar Galactica, where a number of the team are infected and you don't know who they are, and it always has me and my friends rowing and laughing. It's just always a good experience. So anything that gets people talking, laughing, looking at each other, not staring at the board. Again, it's almost as if I use social interaction to help my mental health.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought it?
Yeah, there's looking on my shelf over here, Crossed Words by Indie Boarding Games. It's a good little not social deduction, but just like a social party game. And you've got a 3x3 grid that's open, so you've got a total 9 spaces, but on the left 3 cards will have like a topic, and then the top 3 cards will have a different topic. And where those intersect, you have to come up with something. So
that's nice.
We were playing one time, and it was, liquid and family member is what intersected. And my buddy threw down, and he wrote it down real quick, threw it in there, because you submit it face down. So whenever we got around to it, he ended up putting Ant Flow down. So I mean, it's just all kinds of craziness in that game. It was definitely for our group. We have to play with people with dark humor.
Yeah, that helps.
But that one's good for that kind of like interaction. Just One, and then Clover. So Clover.
I played that. Yeah, that's nice, isn't it?
Those are fun. Typically, I wouldn't be drawn toward those either. And then I played them, and I'm like, this is like a different type of fun for like what I'm looking for. Like this is more person-to-person interaction instead of like some sort of game interaction.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time playing Codenames. Too much time playing Codenames as well. The finger comes out and says no, and it's like, but good fun with that as well.
Trying to see here. So can you I don't want to like put you in a situation. Can you say anything about the new game that you're designing?
Oh yeah, well, I'm working on about a dozen other games at the moment. So this one in particular, it's very different from Zombie Princess. It's actually a light role-playing crossover board game, really, called Finia. That's a working title. And the twist is that the map is a blank piece of white paper, and all the players have to sketch on the map as they're designing it and building it and exploring it. So it's really, you build your character and you build the world, but you literally have to draw it, which has resulted in some very interesting outcomes in the playtesting. We're going through a lot of playtesting at the moment, but I'm really excited about it. It's a cooperative game, but that can change. And it's got a touch of the pandemic kind of catastrophe, here it comes element to it, but it's quite different, and I'm quite excited about that. So that's what I'm working on. I've got lots of other games in the pipeline. I'm just working out what to do with them at the moment. And we have a great bunch of playtesters. We meet up every Friday in London to spend a day's play. I did that yesterday, spending a day's playtesting, which is invaluable. That's the playtest meetup group. So that's really good to meet other designers as well.
Yeah. So is there any place that people could go to just kind of keep up with your work or keep up with you or anything like that, where they can keep an eye out?
I've got an Instagram account. It's Andrew_Beardsley_board games. And I post regularly about what I'm doing. I'm also an artist. I studied fine art, and I also paint. I have a painting account as well, but so I'm quite a visual person. So I post updates on the games I'm designing and things I'm interested in, lots of pictures of things I'm working on. So people can find me on Instagram.
Very nice. Well, Andrew, I appreciate the time today. We had to kind of work out a new system with us. Our
Yeah.
our usual recording stuff was acting up, so we had to do a Zoom. So we're limited to 40 minutes. So I want to make sure we can finish up before we just get dropped out. But
Thanks,
I
Corey. That's great.
appreciate the time. I'm looking forward to getting the game. I ordered it off of Amazon because I think
Fantastic.
it's simple enough to where my 5-year-old will be able to pick it up
Oh,
quick,
yeah.
and we'll be able to have a
Yeah.
blast with it.
Yeah.
Every
Kids of
day,
all ages, adults, they'll love it. Yeah.
every day or almost every day, it's Daddy, let's play a board game. Like
Yeah.
I dropped her off at my mom's yesterday because she'll always stay the night with my mom on Friday nights, and she went straight to the playroom, busted out the memory game. There's like a Disney princess memory game. And she started, putting them out on the table, and I was like, all right, I'll play before we leave. And she's like, no, you always win. I'm like, you beat me at this game more than what I win. And she's like, oh, I do. So we played, and sure enough, with me legitimately trying, I got beat by a 5-year-old at memory.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. I get the game. My nieces always beat me. It's because I underestimate them. Never underestimate a 5-year-old.
Yeah, no, I was trying to win, and she beat me like 8-3 or something. It was insane. All right. Well, Andrew, again, thank you. I hope you have a great weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, Corey. Good to talk to you.